Chapter 53, Philip. I hate politics. Don't get me wrong, I have strong opinions about what's going on, and am very concerned about the direction our country is heading. But my frustration these days lies with the fact that it's almost impossible to implement curative policy because of self-serving partisanship. As a concerned citizen who grew up in a Republican household that revered President Eisenhower, a five-star general who rode the wave of his World War II popularity into the White House for 8 flourishing years, I learned at an early age that a person can be an effective public servant without having to be compromised by the politics it takes to get into office. Even that night in Tampa, as Trump held the door for us to enter the St. Pete Times Forum, he expressed his own frustration that within the party itself, the lack of unity had divided the delegates' votes among 6 candidates, so there was still no nominee. "Asshole," said Trump. "They should change our party symbol from an elephant to an elephant with 6 assholes." For a second, I thought Peckerman was talking. But Trump's choice of words aside, I was curious about his take on the situation. "If it were up to you, Mr. Trump," I asked as he led the way to his box, "who would you like the party to choose?" "Me," he said, then smiled like it was a joke, then got serious like it really wasn't a joke. I must say it was exciting to be inside that arena, a convention center that held concerts and where the Tampa Bay Lightning hockey team plays their home games. I mean, watching it at home is one thing, but to be where the actual delegates were, right there on the floor announcing who they were casting their votes for, was a big thrill. And to be guests in Donald Trump's private box was an extra thrill. A glass-enclosed booth with about 12 cushioned chairs like the ones in a movie theater, as well as a TV monitor bracketed to the ceiling showing all the action down on the floor. "You fellas hungry? Want food? Something to drink?" Trump asked, pointing to a buffet and fully stocked bar. I was famished. I really hadn't eaten anything since that Air China flight to Beijing. But it was Peckerman who'd had about 6 meals on the plane who answered. "You bet, Donnie boy," he exclaimed before picking up a plate and making a beeline from one end of the table to the other, grabbing enough food to feed the 7 other people who were already seated in the booth. Nicely dressed men and women whom I got the impression worked for Trump, and all of who emitted a collective gasp upon hearing the idiot Peckerman call their boss Donnie boy. All eyes, including ours, were now on Trump, awaiting his reaction. His face was taut and his eyebrows contracted. "Donnie boy," he said. "I've never been called that by anyone." But then, as if he had reminded himself about something, the scowl slowly started to relax, giving way to a smile. "But I always wanted to be called Donnie boy," he said, before looking at his employees. "Didn't I?" in a tone signifying that the answer was yes. "Yes, Mr. Trump," they said in a single voice. He then told me and Peckerman to come sit next to him at the front of the booth after we'd gotten our food. When he sat down with his back to everyone, the postures of the employees behind him visibly relaxed. After filling our plates, Peckerman and I stopped at the bar to order drinks. Peckerman ordered 3 large gin and tonics. That's right, 3. I asked for a cranberry juice with a splash of soda. "Got a yeast infection, shithead?" "What are you saying, Peckerman, that a person can't order cranberry juice simply because he enjoys it?" "Nobody simply enjoys cranberry juice." "Fine, so I'm the only one who likes cranberry juice." While the bartender was making our drinks, we looked out onto the floor where the delegation from Tennessee was casting its votes. Since the roll call was always in alphabetical order, it meant that they were getting down toward the end of this ballot. Peckerman shook his head and got reflective for a moment. "You know, seeing this makes me long for my days in politics," he said. "Excuse me?" "There's a lot you don't know about me, Horkman. Fact is, I was president of my class in 4th grade. "It's very impressive, Peckerman, though I find it very hard to believe that anyone who knew you actually voted for you." "They didn't vote for me. I stole the kid who ran for president's bike and told him I wouldn't give it back unless he made me his running mate. So when he won, I became the vice president. But You just said you were president? Well, after the kid who was president got shot, I moved up. Got shot? A 4th grade kid? Who shot a 4th grade kid? And Peckerman looked at the bartender to make sure he wasn't eavesdropping. I did, he whispered. You what? It was a BB gun, you dipshit. After I gave him back his bike, I hid in some bushes. When he rode by, I shot him about 12 times in the stomach. Jesus, Peckerman. So, when he fell off his bike and a car ran him over and he spent the rest of the year in a full body cast and was homeschooled, I assumed the presidency. Before I had a chance to respond, Trump was standing and calling to us. Hey, come here, you two, he said, waving his hand and indicating the seats next to him. I want to hear all about the escapades of the Fantasmas de la Noche. The escapades of who? Peckerman whispered to me. I have no idea, I answered as we grabbed our drinks and approached Trump. Now, Mr. Horkman, I'd like you to sit here, he said, pointing to a seat on his right. And, Fantasma Peckerman, why don't you take the seat on the other side of me so I can hear your magnificent crusade in stereo? When Trump chuckled and then looked at his employees, indicating that the stereo reference was a joke, they laughed. Be right there, Donnie boy, said Peckerman. Donnie boy, Trump repeated. God, I love that name, he said before looking at his employees. Me too, they said in unison. By the time we took our seats, Wyoming had just cast its votes for the very short governor of a very large state. And once again, when the tally was announced, there was no candidate with a majority, and the collective disappointment in the arena was palpable. Motherfucker! Exclaimed Trump, who then shook his head with the same scowl he usually has just before he fires someone on The Apprentice. Hey, we're on television, said Peckerman, pointing to the monitor that showed us on either side of Trump. The cameras had cut to him for his reaction to the continued impasse in the nominating process. Then the oddest thing happened. Almost immediately after the camera cut away to the podium, where the chairman of the Republican Party was calling for still another ballot, it cut back to the shot of us and held it. And the longer that picture of me, Peckerman, and Trump was not only on our monitor, but on every video screen in St. Pete Times Forum, including the 4 huge ones on the scoreboard that hung down from the arena ceilings, the more the attention of the over 19,000 people in the place was drawn to it. And as it did, the cheering grew and grew until reaching a point of sustained pandemonium. Boy, they really love me, don't they, said Trump. Indeed they do, said his employees. Trump saluted in response to this commotion and then spoke up to me and Peckerman in a hushed tone. How would you boys like to have $1 million each? Gee, thanks, Donnie boy, said Peckerman. How come? I asked. Who gives a shit how come? Could that be in cash so we don't have to pay taxes on it, Donnie boy? The reason I want to give it to you is because you're heroes, Trump said, mostly for my benefit, as Peckerman had already borrowed a pen and notepad from one of the employees and was making a list of the things he was going to spend the money on. You're heroes and you're champions of democracy, Trump continued. In so many ways, you remind me of me. They remind us too, said the employees. So, as a fellow champion, I not only wish to personally reward you for your Trumpian efforts, but to reward our country by having you go out there and nominate me as the Republican candidate for president. Us? Why us? Look how we're dressed, I said, tugging on my Air China blanket. How much is a Bentley? Peckerman asked the employees. You? Any you know? I wouldn't worry about how you're dressed, said Trump. I have a feeling those folks out there need to be reminded about the blanket revolution. What's that? I asked. What's that? He asks, says Trump, laughing. What's that? He asks, said the employees, laughing. Well, I'm honored that you feel this way, Mr. Trump, but please call me Donny Boy. But if this is for my country, that's reward enough. We don't need any money to do it. The gash I got in my forehead after Peckerman stabbed me with the pen he borrowed from one of Trump's employees looked worse than it actually was. Douchebag, said Peckerman. I'm entitled to my feelings about things, Peckerman. Not when it affects my reward, you don't. Just know that if you don't want to keep your $1 million, I'd be more than happy to take it off your hands. We were back inside the corridors of the St. Pete Times Forum, being led to the speaker's platform by Trump and the same bodyguards we'd seen earlier. Anything in particular you want us to say, Donny Boy? I asked. Just speak from the heart, Mr. Horkman. Just say how you feel about our country and what's best for it. Except every time you get the urge to say your name, say mine instead. We approached a blue curtain that the bodyguards parted to allow me, Peckerman, and Trump to pass through first. We did, and found ourselves at the back of the podium. We were still pretty much hidden from the crowd at this point, as we were behind a number of people swarming about. Trump approached a man I recognized as the one we'd seen on the TV monitor chairing the proceedings. Trump whispered something to him and then gestured in our direction. The man looked our way, then back at Trump and nodded. Then Trump left his side and came back to me and Peckerman. Okay, fellas, you're on. Chapter 54, Jeffrey. Here's a tip. If you're going to do any kind of public speaking, go to the bathroom first. I should have thought of this on the way up to the podium of the Republican convention, but things were happening really fast. Think about it. 1 minute, I'm in a refrigerator crate, stoned on whatever those pills were. And the next minute, I'm meeting Donald fucking Trump in person. And 3 minutes later, I'm calling him Donny Boy, and we're really hitting it off. I could picture us becoming friends, hanging out socially as two guys who like each other a lot, but don't want to have gay sex with each other. Then Donny Boy's bartender made me 3 gin and tonics the size of Slurpees. Truth is, I never had a gin and tonic in my life, but it just sounds classy, gin and tonic. So it seemed like the thing to drink with Donald Trump. They were pretty strong. Between that and the pills, I was feeling a little out of it. Then all of a sudden, Donny Boy is asking me, do I want $1 million? And I'm like, fuck yes, I want $1 million. Before I know it, Horkman and I are heading out to the podium to nominate Donald fucking Trump for president of the United fucking States. In a situation like that, you don't think, maybe I should duck into the bathroom and drain the lizard first. But my point is, you should. My plan when we were walking out there was for me to do all of the talking and Horkman not to do any of the talking. Partly, of course, this was because he's an asshole, but also I happen to have, as a forensic plumber, a fair amount of experience with public speaking. In addition to testifying in court and hosting my cable show, Forensic Plumbing, I am also, I believe I mentioned this earlier, on the board of directors of our national association, the National Association of Forensic Plumbers National Association. Parentheses, what happened was there used to be 2 rival associations, the National Association of Forensic Plumbers and the Forensic Plumbers National Association. They decided they should join together, but neither side wanted to give up their name. As a member of the NAFPNA board, I've been called upon to speak out on some important plumbing issues, including one time going to Washington, D.C., where I was scheduled to testify before a congressional subcommittee in favor of H.R. 623, a bill that would have repealed the dumbass tree-hugger federal law that made everybody switch to these dumbass low-flow toilets that don't work. I had a great statement prepared that would have torn the fucking lid off of this issue, but I never got to give it because the congressman stopped the hearing to go vote on Iraq. Bottom line, they never did pass H.R. 623, and we still have those dumbass toilets, and what the hell was the point of Iraq? Assholes. Point is, I was going to do the talking to the Republican convention. So I made sure I was a little ahead of Horkman when we walked through the curtain. And then, whoa. When you think about Republican convention delegates, you don't think of hardcore partiers. Democrat delegates, yes. You wouldn't be surprised to see them smoking crack on the convention floor. But Republican delegates, you figure their idea for a really crazy wild time is putting on a Hawaiian shirt and going to see Jimmy Buffett. But when Horkman and I walked out, these people went fucking sane, shouting, clapping, stomping, screaming, dancing, poking each other in the eye with their little American flags. It went on, I swear, for 15 minutes. Horkman and me in our blankets waving at them and them jumping around like maniacs. When it finally seemed to be dying down a little, I stepped to the microphone and they went completely batshit again. And then the whole thing happened again. So at that point, we've been up there for nearly an hour, and we still hadn't said dick, and my head was feeling weird from the pills and the gin and tonics, and I had Lake Michigan slashing around my bladder. So I decided, fuck these assholes, I'm starting. Chapter 55, NBC News Republican Convention coverage. Brian Williams. It looks as though Jeffrey Peckerman is going to try to start speaking here, although the crowd is still cheering as wildly as ever. Tom, you've covered a lot more conventions than I have. Have you ever seen a response like this? Tom Brokaw. Nothing even close, Brian. This is adulation. This is worship. And yet none of these delegates, for that matter none of us in the media either, has any idea where Horkman and Peckerman stand politically. We really don't know what message they plan to deliver here tonight. Williams. True. We don't even know how they got here. Last we knew, they were sparking a revolution in China, and suddenly out of all the places in the world, they appear in Donald Trump's box at the Republican convention. We have no idea why they've chosen to be here. What we do know is that this is an unprecedented moment in American political history, a drama unfolding live before the nation. Brokaw. You know, the television audience for political conventions has been declining for years now, but I'm willing to bet that as word has spread of the appearance here tonight of the Fantasmas de la Noche, the vast majority of the TV sets in this nation, as well as millions more throughout the world, are tuned to this. Williams. No doubt, Tom. All right, Jeffrey Peckerman is waving his arms to quiet the crowd, and it looks as though he might actually be able to say something. So let's listen as we finally hear, as the world finally hears from these two amazing men who have brought so much healing to a wounded planet. Peckerman. Thank you. My name is Jeffrey Peckerman. In parentheses, wild applause, cheering. Peckerman. Thank you. In parentheses, continued wild applause and cheering. Peckerman. Thanks. Okay, thank you, really. Continued, in parentheses, continued wild applause and cheering. Peckerman. Seriously? Will you people shut the fuck up? Parentheses, gasps. Brokaw. Did he just... Williams. Folks, we remind you this is live television. Brokaw. Well, he definitely got them to quiet down. Okay, thank you. I'm here tonight to say a few words on... Excuse me, asshole, I'm talking here. Horkman. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to apologize for the link. Hey, do not push me. Peckerman. As I was saying, I'm Jeffrey Peckerman, and I'm here tonight to say a few words on behalf of a close personal friend of mine, Donald Trump, or as I call him, Donnie Boy, in parentheses, laughter. Peckerman. Thank you. You know, that laughter reminds me of a funny story that I'd like to break the ice with here. It seems somebody stole the commode from the police station, and now the police have nothing to go on. In parentheses, silence. Peckerman. A commode is a toilet. In parentheses, silence. Peckerman. Police have nothing to go on because they can't go on the toilet because somebody stole it. Jesus, is everybody here retarded? Parentheses, nervous laughter. Horkman. Okay, there's absolutely no excuse for that kind of... Hey! Peckerman. Shut up, asshole. Ladies and gentlemen, getting back to the issue at hand, Donald Trump. What can you say about this man that hasn't already been said by either himself or somebody else? But I will try. Donald Trump is a great American. Let me ask you a question. Abraham Lincoln, was he a great American? Of course he was. But now let me ask you another question. How much was Abraham Lincoln worth? I'm talking net. In parentheses, silence. Peckerman, my point exactly. Now, ladies and gentlemen, look at Donald Trump. Where is he? Okay, there he is on the big screen. Yoo-hoo! Donnie boy, smile. In parentheses, laughter. Peckerman, ladies and gentlemen, Donald Trump is richer than Abraham Lincoln or any other president we have ever had, including John Kennedy, Benjamin Franklin, or Franklin P. Roosevelt. Donald Trump is richer than fuck. Do you know why, ladies and gentlemen? Because Donald Trump demands quality, that's why, in everything. His buildings, his golf courses, his signature line of chocolates, his wives, everything. And that's what we need in this country, quality. Donald Trump does not settle for shitty. If something is shitty, Donald Trump says no thanks. That's the kind of thinking we need as a nation. We have to stop settling for shitty. In parentheses, applause. Peckerman, thank you. Look at our toilets. Like many of you, I grew up in America where we had great toilets. We had toilets that used 3.5 gallons of water per flush. Those toilets had suction, ladies and gentlemen. Those babies could suck down a mature sheep. And now, look at what we have. We're using wussy toilets, people. Oh, sure, if you're a European, you're eating like a fucking mosquito and crapping out little molecule turds. Those toilets are fine. But we don't crap like fucking Europeans. We're Americans, and we crap like Americans, and we deserve toilets as good as America. People of America, are you happy with your toilets? In parentheses, applause, shouts of no. Peckerman, exactly. And when these assholes in Washington could have done something about it, what did they do? I'll tell you what they did. They voted on Iraq. What kind of priorities is that? Which would you rather have, America, Iraq, or strong toilets? In parentheses, silence. Peckerman, in closing, Donald Trump, nominate him. And I'm not just saying this because of the $1 million, although I definitely appreciate it. I seriously have to go. In parentheses, crowd noise, shouts. Williams, I honestly don't know what to say. Brokaw, I've been covering politics a long time, and I have never seen anything like that. Williams, I don't even know if we're still on the air, but if we are, let me attempt to summarize. It appears that Jeffrey Peckerman was attempting to break the delegate deadlock here by calling on the convention to nominate Donald Trump, who as of now is not even in the running. Philip Horkman was on the stage with Peckerman, but did not appear to share his views. In fact, at one point they appeared to get into a shoving match, and after that Horkman spent the rest of the speech standing off to the side, shaking his head. It's not clear at the moment whether what Peckerman is suggesting is even within the convention bylaws. There's a lot of shouting going on down there, and at the moment, the convention appears to be in a state of total chaos. Brokaw. Meanwhile, as you can see, both Horkman and Peckerman are still on the stage, along with a large crowd of Republican dignitaries. But it seems to be an awkward gathering, Brian. My impression is the party bigwigs initially were eager to be seen up there with Horkman and Peckerman, but now after that speech, which can only be described as bizarre, a lot of them are not so sure. Williams, Peckerman also seems quite agitated, doesn't he? I'm wondering if we can get a close-up shot of what he's... Oh my God. Brokaw, is that what I think it is? Chapter 56, Philip. The mere thought of what he did still horrifies me. Chapter 57, Jeffrey. I swear to God, I never had any intention of urinating on Sarah Palin. Sarah Palin. Ugh. Politics. The lady. All I wanted to do was get the hell off the stage and find a bathroom. But here's the thing, the stage was the size of fucking Connecticut. Also, it was loud as hell in the hall, and there were all these bright lights blasting in my eyes. I was definitely still messed up from the gin and the pills, so I had trouble figuring out which way to go. And then all these Republican suits showed up, swarming around me and Horkman. Some of them wanting to shake hands, some of them wanting to talk, a couple wanting to admire our Air China blankets like they were fucking Picasso paintings, and I could not get out of there. Did you ever have to piss really, really bad? I mean, really, really, really bad? Well, that's the situation I was in. I couldn't even walk at that point. I had to do something right away. So I thought, okay, I'll go behind the podium there, which will at least give me a little privacy. So I shoved past the suits, stepped behind the podium, and whipped it out. The problem was I got myself turned around somehow, so when I went to what I thought was behind the podium, I was actually going in front of it to the audience side, but because of the lights in my eyes, I didn't realize this. So I basically whipped it out in front of the entire Republican convention and a worldwide TV audience. That was bad enough. What was worse was that by pure coincidence at that exact moment, Sarah Palin, I don't know why I can't remember how to pronounce it. Oh, probably because I haven't had access to a fucking television in over 4 years. And if so, I know. Palin. Sarah Palin? Anyway, she came around the other side of the podium, but she wasn't looking at me. She was looking at the crowd and waving. So there I am, just starting the longest piss of my life, the kind you can't even stop if you wanted to. I have my eyes closed, and all I'm thinking is, I heard some shouting, but like I said, it was loud and crazy in there anyway, so I didn't pay much attention. And then I heard a scream right in front of me, really close. So I opened my eyes, and there she was, looking down at her pantsuit, which looked like she'd been wading in the Pea River. I real quick spun away, but unfortunately I spun toward the audience. So now I was hosing a whole bunch of delegates who were not at all happy. But like I said, once you get started on a whiz of that magnitude, you are basically committed to seeing it through. At that point, things happened pretty fast. I got grabbed by some guys who I think were Secret Service, and they hustled me off the stage with my arms behind my back, which meant the dignitaries were scrambling to get out of the way because I was still basically a human geyser. I felt pretty bad about the whole thing, and I wanted to apologize to Sarah Palin, but the Secret Service assholes wouldn't listen to me. I'll say this, you see her up close, she's still a very attractive woman,